Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Auburn finally had enough of Gus Malzahn after a disappointing 6-5 season that saw them lose 3 of their final 4 games in 2020. Bryan Harsin is now the new head man down on the Plains, and he has talent, but also has a very difficult schedule to go with it, which means 2021 might not go the way that he or the Auburn faithful hopes. So guys, again, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here to break down Auburn's schedule and record for this 2021 college football season. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure to check out everything down in the description below. Not only do we have our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, but we are now partnered with Prize Picks as well. Make sure to go use our promo code GRIDIRON over there, the link down in the description as well, and start playing over there today. Expert Picks and Prize Picks. Do not miss out on either of those. Sign up now before the season starts. So let's take a look at Auburn. Like we just said, they finally got rid of Gus Malzahn, bring in Bryan Harsin, who was phenomenal during his time at Boise State. He's an offensive-minded coach, and hopefully he can get something going with this Tigers offense that needs some help, especially at quarterback, because his whole offense right now is revolving around Bo Nix, who over the course of his Auburn career has been very disappointing, mediocre at best. Nix threw for over 2,400 yards and 12 touchdowns last year, also rushed for 7, but threw 7 interceptions. He has not lived up to the hype that was built around him coming into his tenure down at Auburn. He hasn't lived up to it. He has not shown us what kind of quarterback he can be. Bryan Harsin is hoping to change that. He's hoping to develop him a little bit more. But we all know that really the true workhorse for Auburn this year is going to be their running back in Tank Bigsby, the SEC Freshman of the Year in 2020. Rushed for 834 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. He's the leader. He is the workhorse. Auburn is going to want to run the football with one of the best running backs, not just in the conference, but in the entire country. The biggest key for Auburn offensively is, outside of the development of Bo Nix, is building chemistry with wide receivers. The Tigers lose their top 3 wide receivers from last year, and then just hoping their offensive line can be a lot better than it was in 2020. The defense. I thought Bryan Harsin made a phenomenal hire by bringing in Derek Mason as the new defensive coordinator. As many, I'm sure, know, and it sounds familiar, Derek Mason was the former head coach at Vanderbilt. He was fired last year and now brought on as a defensive coordinator. And I think any time that you bring in a former head coach as a coordinator and a former head coach that has experience coaching in the SEC, regardless of how good they were, that's huge. And Bryan Harsin recognized that. He's not familiar with the SEC. He's bringing in a guy that is familiar. Again, fantastic hire by Bryan Harsin. And this defense, guys, is going to be the strength for Auburn, at least early on. You've got Zakoby McClain at linebacker, had 113 tackles in 2020. The defensive line looks to be very, very solid, and the secondary is no exception either. They're extremely solid. Roger McCreary in with 3 interceptions in that secondary. Smoke Monday in that secondary as well. Could be one of the best in the country. The only thing that I'm looking at for Auburn is they've got to improve in stopping the run. They allowed 163.4 rushing yards per game last year. That was 8th in the SEC out of 14 teams, 62nd in the country. They improve on that mark just a little bit, they could be looking really good, because I don't think many teams are going to have much success through the air against this Tigers team. So we take a look at Auburn's schedule, guys. We mentioned earlier it's very, very brutal. Obviously, the SEC West period is tough, but they have to go to LSU. They have to go to Texas A&M. They have to go to Penn State in the non-conference. Of course, draw Georgia out of the SEC East. It's a tough, tough schedule, guys, for Bryan Harsin. A first-year head coach, this is not how you want to open up. But I will say that I do think he opens up at 2-0. I think they beat Akron, and I think they beat Alabama State, both of them with ease. Don't have to talk much about it. And so Auburn is 2-0 to kick off the year, going into their first true test in Happy Valley against Penn State. Many think this could be the whiteout game for the Nittany Lions. And look, when you go to Happy Valley and you are facing them for their whiteout game, it's almost impossible to win. It is very, very difficult to win in Happy Valley if this, of course, is in fact the whiteout game. Even if it's not, Happy Valley period is a very difficult place to play. And when I look at this game, guys, Penn State, to me, owns the edge in the majority of the areas in this game. They own, in my opinion, the quarterback edge with Sean Clifford. I don't think they own the running back edge. I don't think many teams will own the running back edge over Auburn. But Penn State does own the quarterback edge. They own the wide receiver edge. And they might even own that defensive edge as well. A defense for Penn State that ranked 17th nationally. 17th in the nation last year in total defense. Not to mention they only allowed 130.2 rushing yards per game. They bottle up Tank Bigsby. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be able to come on the road and win this game through the air. Absolutely not. We're going with Penn State in this one, and I think they win by double digits. I do think Auburn beats Georgia State to round out September, so Bryan Harsin era is off to a good start. They're 3-1 going into SEC play. From here on out, it's all SEC. And as we all know, that makes or breaks your season. Well, they kick off SEC play with a brutal month of October, guys. LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. Those 4 games are just terrible. I mean, extremely, extremely tough for Bryan Harsin and the Tigers. We'll start with LSU. Auburn won this game 48-11 last year, but don't let that score fool you. If you're going to sit here and say, hey, they won by 37 points last year, there's no way there's a 37-point swing from 2020 to 2021. There is, and there can be, because LSU was so depleted in that game. Not to take anything away from Auburn, nothing to take away from the Tigers in that game, but LSU didn't have a quarterback. They were going back and forth between Max Johnson and TJ Finley. It was a complete offensive disarray for LSU. This year, that's not looking to be the case. As long as Miles Brennan is healthy, he and Kayshon Boutte are going to be one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the nation. And this Auburn secondary is going to have to find a way to slow them down. On top of that, LSU is going to have one of the best defenses in the SEC. Got Derek Stingley in the secondary. Got Eli Ricks in the secondary. And you've got a very solid defensive line. So I don't think Auburn's going to be able to throw against LSU. And with that LSU defensive front up front being able to bottle up Tank Bigsby, I don't think he rushes for more than 130 on the day. Games in Death Valley, LSU's due and will be in store for a major bounce-back year in 2021. And I do think they get major revenge over Auburn, especially on their home turf. Auburn then takes on Georgia, the SEC East favorite, a playoff favorite for many. They fell to the Bulldogs 27-6 last year, so by 21 points. Georgia has won 4 straight in this series. They have won 7 of the last 8. There's an SEC championship in there as well. And when you look at Georgia, guys, here's the logic I'm looking at with this Auburn game. Yes, it is on the Plains. It's at Jordan-Hare Stadium. We get that. But last year, Georgia won this game by 21 with Stetson Bennett as their quarterback. Well, now JT Daniels is their quarterback. A Heisman favorite for some, one of the best quarterbacks in the country for many. He is there. Zamir White is there at running back. This is maybe the best Georgia offense we've ever seen under Kirby Smart. This actually could be the best Georgia team we've seen under Kirby Smart, because not only is their offense finally going to be clicking, but the defense is elite as well. They held Auburn to 6 last year. I think they hold them to under 14 this year, despite the game being on the Plains. That Georgia team, to me, is that good. This Georgia team is that good. You can make a case that Auburn's offense will be about the same, maybe even a little worse than they were in 2020, while you can make the case that Georgia as a whole is going to be way better than they were in 2020. And that's a scary thought. Factor all that in there, I think Georgia gets another comfortable win at Auburn. So Auburn has now dropped 2 straight. They're 3-3. They then travel on the road to Arkansas, a team they beat 30-28, but depending on who you ask, they probably shouldn't have. Very, very controversial ending between the Razorbacks and the Tigers in 2020, a game where Bo Nix clearly spiked the ball backwards, which would have resulted in a fumble. Arkansas then recovered it, but the officials ruled it as an incomplete pass, just a plain spike. Clock was stopped. Auburn lined up for the game-winning field goal, hit it, and they beat the Razorbacks by 2. Well, now you look at this Arkansas team. Don't let their record fool you. They went 3-7 last year. In a normal year, 3 SEC wins would be good enough to get you a 6-6, maybe even 7-5 record. The Razorbacks are trending in the right direction under Sam Pittman. They now have a dual-threat quarterback in KJ Jefferson. They have one of the best wide receivers in the country in Traylon Burks. And their defense is improving drastically under Barry Odom, a very strong secondary and one of the best linebacking duos in the country in Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool. They're going on the road to Fayetteville. And if you don't think the Hogs have this game scheduled, like wrapped around on their schedule, circled on their calendar, hungry for revenge after the ending they suffered last year, you're wrong. The Razorbacks are hungry, they're motivated, and they're angry about what happened in 2020. And I think they take all that frustration out on the Tigers on October 16th and I do think they drop this game. And a major factor for this, guys, is simply revenge. Simply getting revenge after the Razorbacks feel like a win was stolen from them in 2020. So I do believe Auburn drops that game. And they go into their bye week on a 3-game losing streak. But I think the bye week comes at a perfect time. Obviously, it's an opportunity to regroup. 3 very difficult games before that bye week. Regroup, try to get back on the winning track. And they're getting that bye week before playing a quality opponent in Ole Miss. So that's huge. They get a whole week of rest and a whole week to prepare for one of the best offenses in the country in Ole Miss. And Auburn's defense did a solid job of slowing down the Rebels last year. They held them to 28 points. The team that had the 7th-ranked passing offense in the country, Auburn held them to 28, beat them 35-28. So if they can slow them down last year, I believe Auburn can do it again, especially with a week of rest, especially with the game being at home. I'm going to pick Auburn to pull off what many would say is an upset over a potential top 25 Ole Miss team. And a major reason for that is because while I think Ole Miss is due for a big year in year 2 under Lane Kiffin, their defense still concerns me. And Ole Miss gave up 206.9 rushing yards per game last year. I think Auburn and Tank Bigsby go off in this game. I think you see a big rushing performance from the Tigers. I'm not saying they're going to blow out the Rebels, but I have faith in their defense, especially their secondary, and I believe Bigsby is able to do enough on the ground, maybe to relieve Bo Nix a little bit, and Auburn get to win off the bye over Ole Miss. And that's going to be crucial, guys, for their bowl hopes. Because the month of November is very difficult too. Book-ended by Texas A&M and Alabama, maybe the top 2 teams in the SEC West. And then a road game at South Carolina sandwiched in there too, a team that Auburn lost to in 2020. So they're going to have to finish strong here. They've got 4 wins now. They've got to win 2 of their final 4 to go bowling. They come out in the beginning of November and take on Texas A&M. Now, a fun fact about this, since A&M joined the SEC, Auburn has yet to lose in College Station. The Tigers have lost at Jordan-Hare Stadium, but they thrive at College Station, where they are 4-0 since Texas A&M joined the SEC. So if history is any indication, we should just go ahead and pick Auburn here and have them upset Texas A&M. Now I think we're going to see a change in history in 2021 because I believe Texas A&M is that good. The Aggies beat Auburn in Jordan-Hare Stadium 31-20 last year. Texas A&M allowed just 92 rushing yards per game, 2nd in the country. 2nd in the nation last year, allowing just 92 rushing yards per game. They were 9th overall in total defense. Now they return 9 starters on that defense with DeMarvin Leal, a very strong secondary. I don't see Tank Bigsby having a big day. I don't see Bo Nix having a big day. If Auburn can't generate any offense, they're going to be in trouble because their defense is going to get worn down. And by this point in the season, I believe Texas A&M's brand new quarterback in Haynes King is going to finally start to find his groove. And they have Isaiah Spiller, one of the best running backs in the country as well. A&M wants to run the ball this year, and they will do that. We mentioned Auburn's rushing defense at the beginning of this video. It needs to improve. If it hasn't improved, Spiller's going to be in for a big day. A&M finally gets that home win over Auburn. Usually it's the road win. Finally wins on the road. No, A&M finally wins at home against the Tigers, and Auburn takes another SEC loss. Lucky for them, right before Alabama, they get to not weaker opponents, but easier opponents. I mean, you can make a case that with the exception of the non-conference games, Mississippi State and South Carolina are the easiest games on Auburn's schedule. Because again, outside the non-conference, and obviously Penn State's tough, they don't face an easy, quote-unquote, SEC team. Arkansas won't be easy. LSU, Georgia, of course not. Ole Miss, A&M, of course not. And then Alabama, no. These are the 2 easiest conference opponents, and they get them back-to-back in November with bowl hopes on the line. Well, they get the win over Mississippi State. They beat them 24-10 last year on the road. They can do it again. This Auburn secondary can shut down Mike Leach's air raid offense, an air raid offense that was inconsistent in 2020. So I do think they beat Mississippi State, and I do think they clinch bowl eligibility by beating South Carolina on the road. They fell to the Gamecocks 30-22 in 2020. Fell by 8. It's a bad game for Auburn, guys. Big win for South Carolina. One of the few they had, only 2, but it was a big win for them. And look, I love Shane Beamer. I love him as a coach. I think he's going to do great things in Columbia, but he doesn't have that much talent on the South Carolina team yet. The biggest playmaker they have is Kevin Harris. Auburn shuts down Kevin Harris, shuts down the run. They're going to be just fine. Bryan Harsin realizes that. Also realizes, like, hey, if we want to go bowling, we probably need to win because Alabama's next week. I believe that they do beat South Carolina on the road. It's close again, but they get revenge from that loss last year. Bowl eligibility has been clinched. They're 6-5. They dropped to 6-6 with a loss in the Iron Bowl against Alabama. They fell to the Crimson Tide 42-13 in 2020, and I'm not seeing a 29-point swing this time around. Not with Alabama's defense being as good as they're going to be, not with Bryce Young now being the quarterback for Alabama. The only thing that Auburn has going for them here is a little bit of history. They've won 3 of the last 4 games over their in-state rival when the game's been played at Auburn. So that's one plus. But let's also keep in mind that those games were all won with Gus Malzahn on their sideline. So Bryan Harsin's first Iron Bowl. We'll see how he fares, how he stacks up against the almighty Nick Saban. But I don't think it's going to be pretty in the season finale, despite it being at Jordan-Hare Stadium, despite it being senior night. Alabama simply is just going to be too much for, I think, just about everybody in the SEC. Auburn drops this game and finishes 6-6 in 2021. Now, I know the majority of your Auburn fans will hate this, and you're going to say I'm ridiculous and that they should go 8-4, 9-3. Heck, many of you will say they're probably going to go almost undefeated and win the national championship because that happens every year. Look, it's a major transition year. Brand new head coach, brand new coordinator, still mediocre quarterback play, a quarterback that loses his top 3 receivers, an offense that needs help on offense, and a brutal, brutal schedule, guys. Yes, maybe they were able to pull off a few wins that they should. Maybe they beat Arkansas. Some people think they could beat Penn State on the road. Maybe they were able to pull off an upset against Texas A&M or someone like that. Best case scenario, 8-4 for the Tigers, guys, but I'm not seeing it. I think 6-6 might be lucky enough. Bryan Harsin is a good enough coach, and this team has enough talent to go bowling, but they don't have much more than that. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure, as always, to check out everything down in that description below. Sign up for those expert picks before the season starts today. Make sure to sign up for the prize pick stuff over there as well. Use our promo code GRIDIRON and the link down there to go sign up today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.